All right, you're joined from Richmond, Virginia by the Burnout coach, Courage coach, Keonna Knight. We thank you so much for taking some time for us today. You were originally scheduled to speak to our seniors here at Velma Jackson High School, but with a schedule change, you're going to be speaking to our business law class. So I've got a room full here with me at Velma Jackson High School. We're recording this for all of our friends in Madison County Schools, Madison Central, Ridgeland High School, Germantown High School, the Academic Options Center, and our YouTube channel. So thank you so much for joining us all the way from the beautiful city of Richmond today.
Awesome. I am so glad to be here. I was poking around for a second to make sure my screen was up and ready. So I used to be a teacher, so naturally I like to share screen. I'm very visual. I'm a kinesthetic learner, so I like to see things. So I'm going to share my screen. And I'm just super excited to be able to share my story. I remember being in high school and I didn't have a lot of examples of what could be possible. And so being able to share that with other young people is exciting for me. So should I go ahead and jump in, or do you want to allow
Yeah,
people
I've,
to
I've got
answer?
I've got them coming in. Let's go ahead and roll.
Gotcha. Okay. So my name is Keonna Knight. I am the Chief Executive Officer of Heal with Keonna, and I serve as a burnout coach and a speaker. And so my work centers the well-being of people, is making sure that the folks who are leading, the folks who take care of us, the folks who are constantly holding the weight of so much, have the support that they need to be able to take care of themselves. And then I'm also a trained therapist. One of the things that I like to share is that before I was Keonna Knight, CEO, I was this little girl. I was little Keonna with a missing tooth who had big dreams. And one thing for me, so I grew up in a single parent household, and I remember looking at my family and just being like, I want more. Like my very tight-knit family, but I wanted more. So I'm in the city of Richmond and I'm seeing all the people around me, and I'm like, I love my community, but I want more money. I want to be able to travel the world. I want to be able to go to college. I didn't know anybody around me who went to college. A lot of people who started families very young. I was like, I don't want to necessarily do that myself. I want something different. And so I was like, you know what? My dream is I'm gonna go to college and I'm gonna have to figure out how to get a full ride because my mom can afford college. And that was my commitment. And so I buckled down. I tell my best friend this all the time. I was in elementary school, like I'm going to college. And she's like, girl, everybody else want to play on the playground, you know. I was like, no, this is serious to me. Because it's not just about me, but I was like, I want to be able to give something back to my family. I want to be able to go back to my community and make a difference. And so I was very serious about school. When they said, don't get into trouble because it's going to end up in your record, I listened. I was like, y'all ain't got to worry about me. I'm gonna buckle down and get things done. And a lot of effort, energy, and my mom is super supportive, and she didn't always go and say, oh, did you get your homework done? I was like, I'm gonna get my homework done. I'm gonna motivate myself. And so that's what I did. And super excited. I was like, oh, I got a full ride to Penn State on an academic scholarship. And I remember in that moment realizing that I was going to go 5 hours away from home in a space, in a place that I have never been there before, State College, Pennsylvania. And the beauty is that I worked so hard that I was able to not only just get that scholarship, but I received so many scholarships that I actually got paid to go to college. And I tell people this because I'm like, this is not something that I saw, but that when you receive so many scholarships, you get something called a refund check. And I literally got 11,000. They don't let you do this anymore because people were getting paid going to college, not to this degree, but I got an $11,000 check because I had so many scholarships. And so like I got to witness the experience of like I put in the work and I got to see the results. And then I got to be the first one in my family to graduate from college. And so it
Wow.
wasn't just for my mother here or my grandmother, but my nieces. I'm like, I got to be an example. I get to share with them, hey, this is how FAFSA works. This is how you get scholarship money. And my niece here, Jayla, she already has a full ride to a university. She is just a senior. Well, she's just a junior in high school. She already has a full
Wow.
ride. And
Wow.
so for me, it was the part of how do we, reach for more, but then also be able to pass it back. Well, I left college and I was like, okay, now I get to go into my career. I got my degree in education, which, Come to find out, that's not the degree where you make the most money, but it was a degree where I found myself in my passion. I went all the way to California, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to teach. And one of the things that actually happened is, I worked so hard, elementary, middle school, high school, college, and I worked so hard as a teacher, and I found myself months into teaching, I burnt out. And burnout is when you're basically so overwhelmed, so tired, no matter what you do, it feels like it's not enough. You just feel disconnected, like you don't feel present, like you're almost just working on autopilot. And that was my experience. Like I was constantly overwhelmed. And I realized, like, okay, everybody taught me to work hard, but nobody taught me how to take care of myself. Nobody taught me that I'm already enough and I don't have to keep proving myself to everybody. And so I had to go on my own journey. And, people don't talk about this a lot, but I had to heal. I had to acknowledge that, like, this is not just about me becoming excellent to the world, but I have to create a life that I love. And I realized a life that I love looked like me helping people on their healing journeys, me teaching other teachers how do you take care of yourself while you take care of your students. I was working 70 plus hours a week, after school tutoring, making all my, and you probably understand this, Greg, where you are constantly doing stuff after school, outside of school, because you want to show up for your students. And so I had to go on my own journey of healing and taking care of myself. And through that journey, I gained tools to be able to coach now other people and to work with other organizations and to teach other people who are in positions like I was while I was a teacher. How do I take care of myself while I'm leading? And so this is what this looks like now. I actually did like a career day for elementary school students, and trying to explain what a coach is to elementary school students was a lot of fun. But I was like, what better ways to show the pictures? Is that I'm like, I'm in the community. I'm doing healing circles in the community. I'm teaching yoga classes. I'm going to large conferences and speaking and engaging people in practices of like, how do I remember that I matter? How do I actually create a life that I love, where I get to do what my purpose is? I get to work with organizations and teach them how do we create stronger teams where folks are not burning out, where your teachers or your social workers or your CEOs have the support that they need to do their job well. And so I'm so grateful to be able to be in a position where I do what I love, where I make money doing what I love. And I didn't see a lot of entrepreneurs growing up. And so I didn't know that was possible. At this point in my life, I'm not working for nobody else. That's just where I am. And so I think it's important for us to be able to see what's possible. This job that I have didn't exist. I had to create it. That's
Wow.
the power that we have. That it's not always going to be, oh, I want to be a doctor, lawyer. If that's what you want to be, go for it. Sometimes you have to create your own path. And so that's been my journey of like creating my own path. And for me, I'm always big on sharing something that I wish that I knew. One thing that I want to emphasize is like there's so much power in you just making a conscious choice and saying you want something. I remember my best friend in middle school saying, I'm going to be an attorney. She's an attorney now. She just said it. And in that moment in her life, maybe everybody wouldn't have believed it because there was a lot going on. Okay. But that was the power is that she spoke it. And so when I was in elementary school, I said, I'm going to get a full ride to college. And so, like, the words that you speak have power. And so I would invite you to think about what you're saying about yourself. What do you say after I am? Is it I am, something negative? Or is it I am going to dot, dot, dot? And I want you to say it loud, even if the people around you don't believe you. When I was telling my friends in elementary school, I'm going to college for a ride, they're like, girl, go play somewhere. Nobody's thinking about that. You have to be willing to speak, into existence what you want. Have the courage to get away from what you're used to.
And that's a big one to me.
Okay. Like I had to say, oh, I'm leaving my town in Richmond. I'm going 5 hours away where my family can't just pull up on me and say, hey, Keonna, what's going on? I'm very far. I have to figure out who I am outside of them. And so like having the courage to say, I'm going to go to another state for college, or I want to travel. The first time I traveled, I was 18 and I had to find the money myself because I wanted to teach English in Guatemala. Having the courage to say, I'm going to do something different and recognizing it does take courage. It does like you might feel like, oh my gosh, I might be leaving people behind. But the beauty is when you leave people behind for a moment, you get to grab and gather so much wherever you go that you can then bring back to them. Sometimes when you stay in a place, you're just stuck in the same place with the same people. And so having the courage to do that. And then finally, bet on yourself. There's a lot of people, I could easily say, oh, I come from a single parent household. No one in my family graduated from college. No one in my family was an entrepreneur. No one in my family got a master's degree. Yeah, no one in my family, they didn't get to do a lot of the things that I wanted to do. Still powerful, incredible people. That doesn't mean anything about them, but I knew what I wanted for myself. And so the question that I always say to myself on a daily basis is, why not you? Why can't I be the millionaire? Why can't I make an impact in my family? Why can't I make an impact in the world? And so that's what I want to leave you with is like, I know y'all are young. You may be thinking about, what's happening today? What homework do I have? Do my friends still like me? Or do I need to call up this person? Or, I got a game that I got to go to. But as you're thinking about your life, I want to also invite you to think about like, what do you really want? And dream bigger. So whatever that thing you saying that you want, make it bigger. And then make that bigger. And then remind yourself, well, why not you? So
That's all.
that's what I want to leave y'all with. And yeah, to create
Well,
space.
I had a few things I wanted to talk about from that because that was
For sure.
great. Now, one thing I obviously want to mention is that Penn State is obviously one of the largest schools in America.
Mhm,
I went to LSU, one of the largest schools in America, and I
mhm,
have a lot of kids always say I want to go to XYZ because they see the football games. Obviously, Penn State's got a great football program, LSU
mhm,
does, and all that
mhm,
is a lot of fun. But
mhm,
when you are coming from and even me, I went to a big high school, but it was still
mhm,
overwhelming. You come from
mhm.
a
Oh,
small
yeah.
area where you're in a small class, and then
Mhm,
you're all of a sudden thrown into a
mhm,
huge university where there are more people in that university than there are in some cities.
mhm.
How easy is it to get lost in the shuffle if you don't take care of yourself and take care of what's important?
Yeah, and that was something I was going to talk about too, is like I experienced a huge culture shock. Is one on a racial standpoint is I was used to being surrounded by all Black people in my town. And then I went to Penn State, which is a predominantly white institution, and I was just a minority in that space. And so even that experience is the shock of like, there's a lot of people, I don't see a lot of people who look like me, and I'm in a whole new environment. And so new, whenever we're in new situations, it shocks our system. There's a sense of like, oh my goodness, what's going on? One thing that was very grounding for me is like having solid people. It's like remembering that we need people who like genuinely care about us. And I call that a care team. It's like, it's okay if you need a therapist or a counselor, somebody that you can like process what you're experiencing with. It's okay if you have a best friend that you like, oh, I know I'm going to go to their dorm so that we can process what's going on. Like having people that you grab lunch with or like consistently I had a friend group and we were just learning new cuisines because we were used to what we were used to, and so we were like, oh, let's try different foods together. And during that time we would talk about like how school was and what's going on. It's like having a squad and not just people who like you party with. You could party with anybody, but people who really have your back, people who will listen to you. And that's a big part of the work that I share is that our wellness is not something that we do on our own. It's that you have people who check on you like, yo, I haven't seen you in class in a while. You good? If you don't have people around you who say you good, question mark, you need new people. And so I think that's the biggest thing that you can have is a community of people, both advisors, counselors, but also people around you who are going to keep you grounded. And sometimes that means, I called my mom a lot in college, like, oh my goodness, like, having people, maybe it's your family, having people that you're consistently communicating with as you're processing it and not trying to just figure it all out on your own.
Yeah, and that's a good point too, because first of all, I think it's important to state that pretty much every community college, every college in America now has free mental health services on campus that is
Mm,
always free to use for students.
mhm,
And it's
mhm,
so important for students to make the most of that. And another
mhm,
thing, and I'm glad you mentioned this too, no matter where you go to school, no matter what you major in, find student organizations to be a part of.
mhm,
And it is
mhm,
not just about being social, it's about building your
mhm.
network
For
because
sure.
they always say it's not what you know, it's who you know. I take it one step
Mhm,
farther. It's
mm,
not what you know or who you know, it's who knows you.
mm,
So I have people say all the time, "Well, I'm just going to go to class and go to the dorm room." Well,
mm,
you'll have a
mhm,
great GPA, but you're not going to have a resume.
mm,
So,
mm,
it is such a tough balance of,
Mhm,
having that strong GPA, but having the strong network.
mhm,
Um, Now something else you mentioned there was you talked about have a plan and say it out loud, which,
mhm,
it is amazing. And I'm agreeing huge on this. It is
mhm,
amazing how it can just set your mind right for actually say things out loud, to vent, to say things that are, that you've held in.
mhm,
But what I see a lot as a teacher
mhm,
is I have kids say they want to do XYZ, but then there's no motivation and no work ethic. They act like it's a magic trick and it's just going to happen. So,
mhm,
how important is it? Obviously, speak on what you want, but don't lose focus on the work that it takes to get there.
mhm. Yeah, so the speaking part is believing it. First, you have to believe it. And for me, this is also a spiritual thing, is faith plus works. So yes, you believe it, you say the thing, you make it happen, but the way you make it happen is that you have to put in the work. Is that like I had to get serious about my schoolwork and I had to apply to every scholarship that I found. I had to apply to several schools. I had to visit Penn State actually for them to say, oh, hey, we want you to be a part of this program where I got the full ride. My best friend, she had to complete her LSAT. She had to go to law school. She had to, take her bar exam, experience failing it, and then take it again, and then pass it, and then be able to be an attorney. So it's like there is effort that has to happen. And I think, I mean, that goes without being said, is that, you speak it to believe it, but you got to do the work in addition to it in order to make it happen. And that's with everything. But that doesn't mean you need to overwork yourself. That doesn't mean you need to prove yourself to anybody. You do it because this is what you believe that is yours already. And so now your steps are just allowing your future and your reality to meet. So yeah.
Now, another thing you mentioned, and I think this is interesting too, because I've seen a lot of this as a teacher.
Mhm,
Because you talked about stepping out and being, taking a chance, maybe moving somewhere,
mhm,
going to a new place for school, going to a new place for a career. And we have
mhm,
had students come through here. We have one student that comes to mind off the top of my head. She moved to Houston, Texas, and she's a nurse.
mhm,
Just got married, has a great career, just bought a home, but
mhm,
she had a plan.
mhm,
Because I have kids say all the time, I want to live in Chicago, I want to live in Vegas, I want to live in
mhm,
Miami, I want to live in Atlanta. And that's great because those are all great places to live. But it's not just I want to move there and be on Instagram. It
mhm,
is have a plan where you can make a life for yourself and then maybe enjoy the fruits of the city. So talk about that because I think, we see the glitz and glamour of things so much.
mhm,
And I always tell this joke because I'm a huge fan of Jasmine Sullivan.
mhm,
But she has the song where she goes, I'm going to move to Atlanta, open a business, and be rich. And I'm
mhm,
like, a little bit more to it than that. So just talk about the importance of having a plan before
mhm,
you maybe take that chance.
mhm. So I will say I'm very organized. People are probably I may overplan. So I'm on the extreme of I'm very big on plans. And I think for me is really I like to know. And so that's a lot of faith to go somewhere and not know anything. I admire that as well. And when I think about a plan, I think it's having clarity, having direction, and then clear action steps. I don't think it has to be too much, but if you have clarity, I want to go to Georgia. Okay. Direction. Okay, I'm going to Georgia to become whatever's in Georgia. I don't know. Become an artist. Okay. Well, if I'm going to become an artist, what do I need to do? What are the steps? Well, first I need to create a website. First I need to identify what my is, or how I'm going to create this. How am I going to market this? How am I going to promote this? How am I making connections before I get there so that when I get there, people are already in demand for me? And so I think the part that is often, and I share this in the community that I have, is having bold action steps. It's like, what are the things you're going to do? Laying them out. And for me, I like to put on my calendar. So again, I like to be super organized. So I have on my calendar, I have clear objectives, clear initiatives, clear steps that I'm going to take. And then I'm like, okay, I know by March 31st, I will have completed that. And maybe you're not there at that point, but at least writing down, hey, this is the goal, and then these are the action steps I'm taking. And getting feedback from other people you trust. People who have already gotten to where you've gotten to. Call somebody who went to Georgia and became an artist and is successful and say, hey, what did you do to get there? Allow them to provide some feedback on your plan because they may say, oh, scratch that out. If you do this, that'll lock that in for you immediately. So also having mentors who have done, don't ask people who ain't never done what you've done how to get there. Because they're not gonna know how to become an artist in Georgia because they never done that. And so finding people who have experienced what you're trying to get to, or a bit of it. Um, Maybe they become an artist in, I don't know, California. But talking to people who have experienced what you want to experience also takes a lot of the mistakes. You're gonna make your own mistakes, but get ahead of it by talking to somebody who already knows.
Exactly. Now, before I get to their questions, the last point you made on there was about you always ask yourself, why not you? And all these kids have had me in other classes. And the first day of school, that when they have me in ninth grade, I always tell them a couple things. First of all, nothing in your life changes until you decide to change it.
Hmm.
But second, just because you're the first at something doesn't mean you can't be the best at something. And I,
Hmm.
and I, that is so true what you said, because so many kids from all backgrounds are so scared to take that step because they haven't seen anybody else do it. And it's
Hmm.
just, and I think it's just so appropriate, even with it being Black History Month now, with, nobody in your family had gone to college. Nobody in your family had become an entrepreneur, but that doesn't
Hmm.
mean it couldn't happen.
Hmm.
So what can they do if, to kind of avoid that hesitation of taking a chance?
Hmm. Yeah, I think so. This is a word that I use a lot. It's possibility models. And so sometimes you don't see it around you, but there is somebody who has done it or has gotten close to it. So even though nobody in my family went to college, there are people whose parents did, in fact, go to college. So I had a best friend, her parents went to college. I could talk to them. Now, I will be honest, at that age, I didn't talk to them because I wasn't thinking about these things when I was in high school. But there are people who have already done what you, even if they're not right around you. The beauty is that we have social media. I mean, we live in completely different states, but we're able to be here now. And so I think about how many people, now that where I am, I'm wanting to grow my business way beyond where it is now. I'm successful now, but I see success even beyond where I am. And so now I'm scheduling meetings with people who live all over the state who are beyond. And so that's the part for me. They're possibility models. And my thing is, I like success while resting. I'm putting in the work, but I'm also like, I have a bed in my office. Like, that's how I exist in the world. And so I'm connecting with people who are like, oh yes, I've grown this business successfully, but also I'm not so stressed out or I'm not being hospitalized because I'm so overwhelmed, or, there are people who are successful, but they are exhausted. They don't love their lives. I'm not talking to them. And so finding out who are those possibility models for you, who already has. And that's why I'm here. I'm like, I will share my email. If you're like, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur, reach out to me. There are people who are available to you that you don't even know they're available because you're not asking. And so having the courage to say, let me research, like literally Google exactly what you're looking for to find those people and reach out to them and let them be your possibility model. Because even though my family didn't show me that, they showed me some things. They gave me strength and resources and support in the ways that they could. And then other people gave me those other bits and pieces. So don't just look at your family for inspiration. The whole world can be your inspiration. Find it because it's there.
Awesome. Well, I do have time for a few questions. These are really good. So I'm glad they're thinking about this. This first one is Edward Flowers. He's in 10th grade. He's a member of our band here. And
Hi,
he
Edward.
asked, what advice would you give me for overcoming a lack of motivation?
Mm, hmm. Oh, I want to know so much more about Edward to be like super specific. I'm wondering if there is a fear. So I feel like sometimes we're not motivated because we're afraid of something, or the goal is not inspiring to us. So, maybe your parents can say, oh, I want you to do this, I want you to do this, but you don't really care. Or maybe it's because there's a part of you that's afraid of failing. There's a part of you of like, well, if I put in the work, maybe I won't get what I want. And so for me, it's always deeper. Why aren't you motivated? That's the question I want to find out. Not how to get motivated, but why aren't you motivated? And to be honest with yourself first. I would love to almost ask. I'm like, now I want to talk to Edward. And, like where did that come from? Is it because someone is giving you a goal that you don't want? Is it because you don't believe that you can achieve this goal? Is it because the goal feels too small? It's like you put a genius into a classroom, and if it's too easy, they're not motivated. Like, and so it could be so many pieces. So I would first go to why am I unmotivated? That would be your first step before trying to force yourself into the motivation piece.
Awesome. And like I said, and we'll definitely share your email before we're done.
Mhm.
This is Zayden Reed. She's in ninth grade.
What's the name
And she,
again?
Zayden
Zayden. Oh,
Reed.
I love that. Hi,
Yeah.
Zayden.
She asked, what has been your biggest learning experience throughout your journey?
Mm. So I feel like this sounds a little dark, but for me, it has been I've lost a lot of people that are close to me in my life. And in losing people, it has reminded me of the importance of like life, the importance of like really living this life to the fullest. Um, and so one of my biggest learning experiences has been losing my grandmother, who has been like, that's my best friend. Like me and my grandma was like this. And so losing her, I felt like I live not just for myself, but for her. So the motivation that I have isn't just for me. The goals that I have isn't just for me. I'm thinking about her. And so, as you continue to get older and not saying just lost, so many things happen in your life that remind you of like, this is my life and my life has impact. And you'll be dedicated to live not just for yourself, but maybe for future children or for your nieces and nephews or for a grandparent or a loved one who is passed or who's still here that you want to dedicate your energy or the work that you do or the life that you create to. So yeah, it would definitely be the losing people and realizing how important life is and the importance of actually creating a life you really enjoy.
That's awesome. I got time for two more. This is Rondell Ellis. He's in 10th grade, one of our champion archers on our
All
archery team here
right.
at Delta
Oh,
Jackson.
that's cool. I didn't know y'all had that. You said Ardell?
Rondell.
Rondale. Okay,
Yeah.
sweet.
He asked, what was your, you obviously had a first career plan of being a teacher. What was your backup plan if that didn't work out?
Mm. So this is one thing I don't have. I don't have backup plans. And you may hate this, but I really don't because I believe so much in my plan A. And then I trust that if something shifts or redirects, it's because there's something better for me. So I became a teacher and I realized, oh, wait, I'm supposed to teach, but not in this type of classroom. I'm supposed to teach in communities. I'm supposed to teach in corporations. And so I always say, start the plan A, give your plan A your all. And if you're meant to be redirected, oh, you're gonna be redirected. It's like whatever is meant for you is gonna show up. So yeah, that was I didn't expect it to not work out for me. But when it didn't end up working out the way that I expected it, everything is so much better. Like I'm in a classroom right now in a whole other state. Everything works out perfectly.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that too because I pivoted at age 30. I did not
Mm.
become a teacher until I was 30 years old.
Mm-mm.
Now there was a lot of bumps and roadblocks in there,
Mhm.
but I
Mhm.
agree. I'm still doing what I had a passion. I was doing what I had a passion for, but I just went to a different area. So that is a
Mhm.
very common tale, and there is nothing
Mhm.
wrong with it.
Oh,
It,
for
it is a lot
sure.
of people's journey.
And can I add something to that? I want to also
Sure.
encourage, like, while you're in high school, to not even feel like you have to have it all figured out.
Oh, absolutely.
There's too much stress put on high schoolers to know what you want to do. I talk to people my age in their 30s who still don't know. They're still figuring it out every day. So I don't think it's fair for all the pressure to be put on them that they need to know where their life's going to be in 10 years. Where do you want to go right now? You go in that direction and life will pivot you and show you new things. Maybe you say, I want to be a doctor, and you become a doctor and you love it. If you become a doctor, then you decide, I want to start my own business, creating medical equipment, like whatever it is. Also giving yourself the space to be able to like find that and to know you don't have to figure it all out now.
Absolutely. And it's and I'm not about making decisions for kids, but it's all about giving
Mhm.
them options. Everybody's
Mhm.
journey is different.
Mhm.
Um, but I do have time for one more. This is Kamani Wright. He's in ninth grade,
Come on
one
in.
of our one of our champion power lifters here at Velma Jackson.
A lot of
And he
athletes.
asked, when you decided to go to Penn State, did you
Mhm.
face any judgment? And how hard was it missing your friends?
Mm. Yeah, so when I went to Penn State, so as I shared before, I grew up in a community where it was majority Black people. So that was what I was used to. So when I went to Penn State, I realized I met people who were like oh, there was only one black person in their high school. So they came from a very different place where it was majority white people. And so I did experience, I became like very aware of my blackness and my race. There were moments where people were too nice, where they were almost like, oh, and then there were moments where people were like ignoring me, or like always asking me questions about things related to race. That was like very overwhelming. And it did it made me like really understand race relations and understand the world a lot more having that experience. But it also did help me to understand the world a lot more. It's like I grew up in a town where everybody looked like me and thought like me, and so I didn't really have a whole lot of perspectives. And so it did open my eyes, and that was a benefit because now I go through the world and I walk with confidence because I know how to move in every space. Like I have the language, I understand the languages of a lot of different spaces, and I can show up as me exactly like this. I don't code switch for nobody. Like I'm gonna show up very authentically, and that was practicing that space. Related to friends, my closest friends that I have now are still my friends from elementary school and middle school, are still
Wow.
my friends from college. And so I have like a squad of female friends that I am obsessed with. And, you know, they all live in New York. And so I visit New York and we get to spend time together. But my two best friends were from elementary school. We met in first grade. And fifth grade summer, we met in summer school. And those are the people that I talk to the most. And so just because you move, if you have a tight connection, that's not going anywhere. Those are going to be the same people at your wedding, the same people who are going to be there when you're crying, the same people who are going to be celebrating you when you make that huge accomplishment. So you're never leaving anybody. And the goal is, my friends were also going to college in different places. And so we cheering each other on. You make it where you're at, you make it where you're at. If you're leaving a lot of people behind, then are they people that you're going to grow with or people that's going to be a part of your season? That's something to ask.
Love it. Well, we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for joining us today, especially adjusting to the schedule. But a couple things before we go. First of
Mhm.
all, you're a great social media follow. Heal with Kiana on so many platforms. Just share us your there it is right there.
Yes, sharing that. So feel free. My business is Here with Keonna. So if you're like, let me learn more about what does she actually do, check out my website. And if you're like, actually have more questions, there are people who pay a lot of money to talk to me. You have free access. And so please use that email. Reach out if there's a question, if you have a business that you want to start, reach out to me. I don't bite. I want to encourage you. I've been where you are. So if I can be supportive in any way, I will do my best to. So yeah, I was just going to share this so that you have or want to screenshot.
Awesome.
Um,
Awesome. Yeah, I've got a screenshot. I'll definitely send that. Now, the last thing before we go, and again, like I said, it's no coincidence that this is Black History Month, and it's just so important to celebrate all the great achievements of so many great Black Americans that have done so much. But
mhm,
who's to say that the kids that see this can't be the next one? We've got a
mhm.
lot of intelligence in this room. We got a lot of talent in this room. The main thing that I see as a teacher all the time is a lack of belief. So
Mhm.
as obstacles come, as hard times come, no matter what your background is, how can these kids overcome that to become just as successful as someone like you?
For sure. So before I actually was on here, I was watching a video by a woman called Fawn Weaver, and she has a huge, I mean, $1 billion business. It's called Uncle Nearest. I mean, y'all can't drink alcohol, so it's not relevant to you. But this is a Black woman who has $1 billion business. I'm watching this YouTube of her because I'm listening to all the tidbits. She's a part of my tribe now. So don't think just the people around you are the people that's a part of your tribe. I'm listening to podcasts, Oprah. I'm like, give me the gem, sis. I want to hear. And so I think the belief comes from based on what we see. I have friends who they've been around wealth, so wealth is just normal to them. So get around wealth, not because it's around you, but because you make it around you. If you have this, you have access. So start watching interviews. Start your day listening to someone that inspire you. Start your day hearing this person that you say is your favorite athlete or your favorite business owner or this person who has this incredible story. Keep replaying their content. So we can scroll for days, funny, ha ha ha. Ooh, listen, I've done it. But how can we also spend some time with those specific people that we're like, wow. And that's why I say do your research. Find those people who are your possibility models and make them like 10% of your time is spent with them because you listen to so many of their podcasts, you're reading their books, you're watching their YouTube videos. We have access, and so that's what I will say. Because that's what has inspired me. It's like, it's not because it's around me, it's because I have access and I use that access to get the inspiration that I need to keep going.
Love it. Well, again, we thank you so much for joining us today. Great info. We encourage everybody to go to your website, and it's just incredible. Your story can really resonate with any young person as they get ready to transition out of high school. So, Keonna Knight, all the way from Richmond, Virginia, the burnout coach, the courage coach. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And is it possible if we could take a picture?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. All right. Can you smile? Okay. Say cheese. There we go. I like to have a piece myself of the moment. And
Love
I'm
it.
excited to stay connected with everyone. I do have a meeting, so I'm gonna hop off soon. But thank you for inviting me. I'm grateful to have been able to be in this space virtually. Shout out to technology.
All right. And I look for an email from me soon, buddy. Talk to you soon.
Sounds good.
See ya.